Hey there, anglers. Picture this. You step outside just after a summer rainstorm. The air is crisp, cool, almost electric. The scent of wet earth and fresh grass fills your lungs, and the world feels like it's been washed clean. You glance at the water, whether it's a river, a lake, or a small pond. You see those tiny ripples dancing across the surface, catching the light. Everything feels calm, peaceful. But beneath that tranquil water, something incredible is happening. The fish are waking up. They're hungry, ready to strike. And if you know where to cast, what to use, and how to take advantage of this moment, you might just have the best fishing hour of your life. Your go-to channel for real-world fishing tips, stories, and strategies to help you catch more fish. No matter where you are or what species you're chasing, today, I'm going to let you in on a secret that every angler needs to know. Fishing after the rain is one of the most productive, most exciting times to hit the water. I've learned this through years of unforgettable catches, humbling failures, and lessons passed down from seasoned anglers who know the water like the back of their hand. So grab a seat, maybe a cold drink, and let us dive into why the hour after a rainstorm is a window of opportunity you, Dan T., want to miss, and how you can make the most of it every single time. Let me take you back to a sticky, sweltering July afternoon in a small Midwestern town. It was one of those days where the heat just clings to you, making every step feel like you're wading through molasses. The air was heavy, the kind of humid summer heat that makes you dream of air conditioning. By 3 p.m., the sky started to change. Those big, fluffy clouds that had been floating lazily all morning began to stack up, turning dark and ominous. The wind picked up, rustling the trees, and you could feel the storm coming. Then boom, the rain came down, and a gentle drizzle, but a full-on pounding summer storm. It drummed on rooftops like 1,000 tiny hammers, sending kids scrambling for cover and turning the dusty roads into slick, muddy paths. About 30 minutes later, the downpour stopped as suddenly as it began. The clouds parted, and the world felt fresh, like it had been given a second chance. That's when my phone rang. It was my buddy Mike, a grizzled angler with over 40 years of experience chasing fish across rivers, lakes, and streams. Mike's the kind of guy who can look at a stretch of water and tell you exactly where the fish are hiding. He's got some kind of sixth sense. "Grab your gear," he said, his voice practically buzzing with excitement. "Meet me at the old bridge." I didn't ask questions. I grabbed my tackle box, my trusty spinning rod, a cooler for whatever we might catch, and I was out the door in minutes. When I pulled up to the old bridge, I saw exactly why Mike was so fired up. The small creek that fed into the main river was running fast, carrying a steady stream of muddy brown water that swirled into the deeper, greener water of the main channel. It was like watching two worlds collide, muddy runoff meeting clear river water, creating this distinct line, almost like a seam in the water. It was mesmerizing, like nature had drawn a line and said, "This is where the magic happens." Mike pointed right at that seam where the two colors met and grinned. "That's where the buffet line starts," he said. I wasn't sure what he meant at first, but I trusted him. Mike handed me a chunk of chicken liver, his go-to bait for catfish, and told me to cast just along that seam where the muddy water met the clear. I rigged up my line, checked my hook, and sent the bait sailing out into the water. I didn't have to wait long. Within 2 minutes, my bobber started dancing, twitching like it was alive, then dove under like it was on a mission. I set the hook, and my rod bent hard, the line screaming as the fish fought back. After a few minutes of give and take, I pulled up a 5-pound channel catfish, its silver sides glinting in the fading light as it splashed at the surface. That was just the beginning. Over the next hour, it was like the fish were throwing a party, and we were the only ones invited. Bass, catfish, even a couple of chunky bluegills, they were all hitting, one after another. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the river, our cooler was packed, and I was grinning ear to ear. That day at the old bridge was on to just about catching fish, was the day I learned that fishing after the rain is like unlocking a secret code to the water. The fish were there, they were hungry, and all we had to do was show up at the right time with the right bait. So why does this happen? Why do fish seem to lose their minds and start biting like crazy after a rainstorm? It's not just luck or coincidence, there's real science and nature at work here, creating the perfect conditions for a feeding frenzy. Let's break it down into 4 key reasons why post-rain fishing is so productive, so you can understand exactly what's going on under the surface and how to take advantage of it. First, when it rains, especially a good steady rain, it's like Mother Nature flips a switch and starts a conveyor belt of food for the fish. Rainwater washes worms, crickets, grasshoppers, and other small critters from the banks into the water. Plant matter, seeds, and tiny bits of organic debris get swept in too, creating a buffet for bait fish. These smaller fish minnows, shad, or other forage species start feeding like crazy, gobbling up the easy meal. And where there's bait fish, you can bet the predator fish aren't far behind. Bass, catfish, pike, and even panfish like bluegill follow the food chain, moving into these feeding zones to take advantage of the abundance. It's a chain reaction, and it all starts with that rain washing food into the water. Second, after a long, hot day, the water in a lake or river can get warm and stagnant, making fish sluggish. But when rain falls, it changes everything. The cooler rainwater drops the water temperature by a few degrees, which can be enough to wake fish up and make them more active. Plus, the rain stirs up the water, mixing it and adding oxygen. Fish thrive in well-oxygenated water. It's like giving them a shot of energy. They move faster, hunt more aggressively, and are more likely to strike your bait or lure. This is especially true in summer, when hot days can make fish lethargic, and a sudden rain is like a reset button for their behavior. Third, fish are smart. They don't want to waste energy swimming against a strong current. After rain, the increased flow in rivers and streams creates new currents, and fish know exactly how to use them. They position themselves in spots where the current naturally delivers food right to them. Think eddies behind rocks, seams where fast and slow water meet, or areas near inflows. These are like the lazy rivers of the fish world. They can sit in one spot, conserve energy, and let the water bring the food to them. As an angler, if you can find these spots and put your bait in the right place, you're practically guaranteed a bite. Fourth, rain often turns the water murky, especially near inflows where runoff carries sediment. This lower visibility might seem like a challenge, but it's actually a huge advantage for anglers. It's in muddy water, fish can't see your line, your hook, or even you standing on the bank as clearly. They rely more on their other senses, smell, vibration, and lateral line detection to find food. This is where scented baits, like stink bait for catfish or scented soft plastics for bass, become irresistible. Moving lures like spinnerbaits or crankbaits also work great because their vibrations cut through the murk and grab the fish's attention. In short, muddy water hides your mistakes and makes your bait stand out. These 4 factors, food, oxygen, current, and low visibility, combine to create a perfect storm for fishing. But knowing why fish bite after rain is only half the battle. Let's talk about how to put this knowledge into action with another story. Fast forward a few years to a trip I took to North Carolina to visit family. They had a small farm pond out back, about an acre in size, tucked away in a quiet corner of their property. It was home to largemouth bass, bluegill, and the occasional crappie. On a good day, you could catch a few fish, but in the middle of a hot afternoon, it was usually tough. The bass, especially, seemed to hide in the depths, ignoring everything I threw at them. One day in May, I was sitting on the porch when a sudden rain shower rolled through. It was one of those quick, intense storms that passes over just before sunset, leaving everything sparkling and fresh. As the clouds cleared, I grabbed my spinning rod and a white spinner bait, one of my favorites, 4-base, and headed to the pond. The water along the edges had turned murky from the runoff, and I noticed insects struggling on the surface, washed in by the rain. It was like the pond had come alive. I cast my spinnerbait along the windward bank, where the runoff was pouring in, creating a muddy plume in the water. I let the lure sink for a second, then started a slow, steady retrieve, giving it a little twitch every few turns. Within seconds, wham! A bass hit so hard it nearly ripped the rod from my hands. I set the hook and felt the weight of a good fish. After a short fight, I landed a 3-pound largemouth, its green sides shimmering in the golden light. For the next 40 minutes, I landed 6 bass, all between 2 and 4 pounds, each one hitting like a freight train. What made that evening so special? It was all about timing. The rain had changed the pond's dynamics, bringing food to the surface and pushing the bass to the edges to hunt. They were cruising the shallows, looking for anything that had washed in worms, insects, even small bait fish, disoriented by the sudden influx of water. By casting along that murky edge, I was putting my lure right in their strike zone. That evening taught me that post-train fishing isn't just about rivers, it works in ponds and lakes too.
How long as you know where to look.
Now, let's get practical. Here are some actionable tips to help you make the most of that golden hour after the rain stops. These are based on years of experience and work across the U.S., whether you're fishing in the Midwest, the South, or anywhere else. First, target inflows and outflows. After rain, the best spots are where water is moving into or out of a larger body of water. Look for creeks, storm drains, culverts, or even small ditches that are pouring runoff into a lake, river, or pond. These inflows are like highways for food, carrying worms, insects, and nutrients that attract bait fish and, in turn, predator fish. Cast your bait or lure where the muddy water meets the clearer water. That seam is where the fish will be waiting. Second, match your bait to the conditions. Your bait choice can make or break your trip. For catfish, go for smelly natural baits like chicken liver, cut bait like shad or herring or stink bait. Catfish rely heavily on their sense of smell, especially in murky water. For bass, spinner baits, chatterbaits, or dark-colored soft plastics like worms or crawfish imitations are deadly. The flash and vibration of a spinnerbait can draw strikes even in low visibility. For panfish like bluegill or crappie, live worms, crickets, or small jigs under a bobber work wonders. Panfish love the insects washed in by the rain. Pro tip: if you're using artificial lures, choose ones with strong vibration or scent. In murky water, fish are more likely to strike based on movement or smell than sight. Third, fish the seam. I mentioned this earlier, but it's worth repeating. The seam where muddy runoff meets clearer water is a hotspot. Fish love to hold in these areas because the current brings food, and the murky water gives them cover. Cast parallel to the seam, letting your bait drift naturally with the current, or work a lure through it to mimic a struggling bait fish. Fourth, be quick. The post-train bite is often short and intense. The best action usually happens in the first 15 to 45 minutes after the rain stops. When the water is still churning and the food is fresh, don't dawdle, get to the water as soon as it's safe and start casting. Fifth, use scent to your advantage. In low visibility water, scent can be your secret weapon. Use baits infused with attractants, like garlic or shad-scented soft plastics, or dip your lures in scent products. For catfish, nothing beats a good stink bait or a piece of cut bait. That's been sitting in the sun for a bit, just get it on your hands. Not every post-drain fishing trip is a success, and I learned that the hard way in Texas. A few years ago, I was fishing a river known for its big catfish and bass. A storm rolled through, dumping heavy rain for hours. I figured it would be the perfect setup for a repeat of my Midwest success. So I grabbed my gear and headed out as soon as the rain slowed. When I got to the river, I was shocked. The water level had risen so fast that it was flooding the shoreline grass and bushes, turning the whole area into a muddy mess. I cast my usual chicken liver near an inflow, expecting the fish to be lined up like they were at the old bridge. But after 2 hours, all I had to show for it was one small catfish and a lot of frustration. What went wrong? Learned later that not all rain is created equal. A gentle to moderate rain, like the one at the old bridge, stirs up the water just enough to trigger a feeding frenzy. But a massive flooding rain can overwhelm the system, scattering fish into newly flooded areas and making them harder to find. Instead of concentrating near inflows, the fish had spread out into the flooded grass, chasing food in places I couldn't reach with my setup. That day taught me to pay attention to the type of rain and how it affects the water. A steady shower is your friend. A biblical flood might mean you're better off waiting a day. Before we wrap up, let's talk safety. Fishing after the rain is exciting, but it can also be risky if you're not careful. Never fish during lightning even if the rain has stopped. Lightning can strike from miles away. Check the weather and wait at least 30 minutes after the last thunderclap before heading out. Watch for slippery rocks, and banks. Wet surfaces can be treacherous, especially near rivers or lakes. They move slowly and deliberately. Wear proper footwear. Boots with good traction are a must to avoid slipping into the water or twisting an ankle. Be cautious. Near fast-moving water, rain can turn a calm stream into a raging current. Stay away from areas with strong flows, and never wade into water you're not sure about. Safety first, always. No fish is worth putting yourself in danger. Fishing after the rain is about more than just catching fish. It's about reading the water, understanding nature's patterns, and seizing those fleeting moments when everything aligns. It's about standing by a river or pond, feeling the cool air on your face, and knowing you're part of something bigger, a cycle of rain, water, and life that's been happening for millennia. The next time the sky clears and the rain lets up, don't hesitate. Grab your rod, your tackle box, and head to that inflow, that seam, that murky edge where the fish are waiting. Cast your bait, feel the tug, and let yourself get lost in the thrill of the bite. You might just find yourself in the middle of one of the most exciting fishing experiences of your life. Thanks for joining me on this journey. If you loved this story, give it a thumbs up, share it with your fishing buddies, and hit that subscribe button for more real-world tips, stories, and strategies from fishing to 4-H. Drop a comment below and let me know. Have you ever fished after a rainstorm? What did you catch? And if you try these tips, come back and tell me how it went. Until next time, keep your lines tight and your spirits high. I'll see you on the water.